Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Eneasz Brodsky.
I'm Steven Suber.
I'm Jay Sticky.
And today we're going to get lucky, but not until after we have talked about the various listener feedbacks that we have.
Let's do it.
Okay. The first thing we have isn't even a listener feedback. It's just an update. Last episode, we mentioned the Twitter thread about it might not be lithium. Just a couple days after we recorded that, it was expanded into a full Less Wrong post where Natalia lays out a pretty good case that it's probably not lithium. The short version is that the Slime-Old-Time-Old people made a very good circumstantial evidence case for lithium, but they seem to have ignored specific empirical studies that would be contradictory to their message. When it came to actual empirical studies, it looks like the lithium is much smaller than they had estimated it would be. So it's probably not lithium, although I still am strongly suspicious that it is some sort of environmental contaminant, because all their case for there's probably some sort of environmental contaminant seemed very strong.
Yeah, the general point was that we feel like it's an environmental contaminant.
Mm-hmm.
Their stronger claim was we feel like it's lithium.
Yeah.
But that if it's not lithium, it could be something else, for sure.
Yeah.
What's fun, and I just learned this is a 41-minute read, which means for me it's a 90-minute read. But top of the thing on Less Wrong says, this post has been recorded as part of the Less Wrong curated podcast and can be listened to on etc. Spotify.
Yeah.
So today I learned there's a Less Wrong curated podcast.
And we will include a link to that so you can listen to it instead of reading it if you want to.
Yeah, if you're like me and you're listening to this, you like listening to stuff rather than reading it. So
Or both. Both are good.
yeah, reading with your eyes is so 2000 and late though.
Hard to do while driving.
That is true.
Not impossible.
Not impossible.
Still, shouldn't be done.
Oh wow, it's a 40. So that's funny. It's a 41-minute read. The episode is an hour and 11 minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
So
People speak slower than they can read.
dude, we need to find whoever's responsible for making this. It just started on June 20th,
Cool.
and give them a high five.
Hell yeah.
I'll find out and reach out to them because this is
Incidentally, if you're listening to this, reach out to us.
yeah. Say hi.
June 20th. That's like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
only a few posts on this thing, but it looks like it's the ones that, or at least a handful of these are the ones I get in my email of like this week's best posts
Yeah.
that I'd never end up reading.
Yeah.
So now I can read them.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. We got to give mad props to this person. Maybe get him on the podcast or something.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so on to actual listener feedback. All of these came from the Discord because I've been spending a lot of time on the Discord. Also thinking maybe I should spend less time on the Discord. Not that I don't love my Discord peeps, because I really do love all my Discord peeps, but I just feel like I've been spending too much time in front of screens lately, and that's always bad.
You need to go touch grass.
You
As
need
the
to
kids
go
are saying
touch
these days.
grass, that's right.
Which
Yeah.
I thought meant go use marijuana, but no, it means go outside.
Yeah, I didn't know what it meant. If I had to guess, it would be some kind of sex thing, but apparently it just
Grass.
literally meant touching some grass.
I don't know what kind of sex stuff you're into that grass is involved, but I'm not going to judge. So
I mean, it'd be a term for like bush that's been trimmed short or something.
that's funny. All right,
All right,
we're on top. We're on target today.
we always are.
Yeah.
Do the math. When we were talking about the gossip culture versus law culture in the previous Dunbar episode, Do the Math says, in his opinion, the difference between law and gossip culture is how quickly the power structure changes and how legible the power structure is. I think that's probably a very good summation, and also the reason I prefer law culture over gossip culture, because I would like those changes to be a bit more deliberate and take longer and be fucking legible. Just all of a sudden, someone being canceled for reasons that half the time turn out to be bullshit anyway is bad, in my opinion.
I think legibility in law is a necessity, but in just whatever culture, social law, right? I think that is a feature rather than a bug, as I think you've articulated in others.
Legibility, you mean, or illegibility?
Illegibility in
Okay,
current culture, right? You want it to be too fast for the old people to keep up, so that you can have people to shit on. But that's a shitty feature, and it should be moved out in the next update. So,
Dude, the more gossipy a culture is, there was a kid in high school who lost his girlfriend and was shunned because he had the same name of someone else who was getting canceled, and he got canceled by accident. I'm like, dude, that's fucked up. Like, in general, the whole thing is fucked up, but when you didn't even do anything, you just share a name?
I remember seeing something when Brett Kavanaugh was nominated for Supreme Court and all that, stuff about him sucking was being, the news of the month. There's at least one or two other Brett Kavanaughs on Twitter.
Okay.
That, had to be like, I'm not that Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't need that.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever you are, whatever your problem, you shouldn't be bullying people on the internet.
So during that Dunbar episode, we did talk a bunch about Dunbar spheres and being able to contribute to your Dunbar sphere being good at something. Imperishable Neat says somebody on the episode brought up friendship is optimal.
Probably me.
Okay, excellent.
I feel like I'm usually the one that brings that up.
I think that fic and Friendship is Magic in general had a pretty good solution in the form of cutie marks, specifying a pony's special talent, at least in their community. Are they the best in the world at something? Probably not. But are they the best pony in their community at something? Yes. Which is fucking great, and I love that. And also the Friendship Optimal post comparison extended onto that Friendship is Optimal also regulates ultimate power and status to a friendly AGI monarch, who also acts as a personal god ponies can talk to, which, again, is a point for monarchy, I guess, if you are one of those people who likes it.
That is the thing that I'm uncomfortable about in that fic, but I do think it's hilarious to suggest that everybody tattoo, like, a pie on their ass if they're good at baking.
It's a different kind of monarch, though, than just, like, a distant king that you don't get to interact with.
Yeah, I'm much more uncomfortable with, human, or, like, monarchs that are, what am I trying to say here? Like, some guy. Even when we, kind of came to the conclusion that it almost doesn't matter who you pick as a monarch, just, like, sort of grab someone.
Yeah.
But, this was an optimizer specifically made to make people happy via friendship and ponies.
Yeah. I think if everybody
to satisfy people's values.
If everybody could gossip directly to the monarch, then they would be less anti-monarchy.
Well, and if, like, you knew that the monarch could read your thoughts and stuff, and you were okay with that, then that's a different kind of situation. That's just having a god, right? Yeah. If God's cool, that's great, right?
You did have to get consent for her to read your thoughts and to modify your values.
Yeah, but eventually it got to the point where, the non-pony world was a post-Matrix hellscape, so which was made that way by Celestia, so people would be more willing to give consent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bit coerced.
But it's only coercion because, she really cared and wanted everyone to be happy, so... I
mean, that's important, right? That she knew what was best.
If no one's following this, do check out this story. It's fun and chilling, and this is the scenario that I find, and I'm not like it. It sounds like I'm making too strong a claim, like I'm trying to sound too smart. But to me, this is what I feel like. This keeps me up more than being turned into a paperclip.
Okay.
Right, the concern of being turned into a pony that loves being a pony is, and obviously the same way as a paperclip, it's hyperbolic. But that's more my concern. Not that we're going to be just ripped apart for atoms, or we're going to be modified in a way that I wouldn't have agreed with if I knew beforehand what I was signing up for.
Yeah, I guess we should have a whole episode about friendship is optimal. I think.
That's actually sounds like a good solution. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to stop speculating like I was about to and continue on with this. Imperishable Neat also says, in today's complex world, people acquire feelings of high status in incredibly destructive, distorted, dehumanizing ways. Whether through conspicuous consumption, the rat race of the capitalist workplace, the algorithmic hellscape of social media and parasocial relationships, organized religions and cults, political tribalism and conspiracy theories, plain old nationalism and racism, wow, I really should have edited this down, or chasing the actual neurochemical rewards through recreational drug use and other altered states of consciousness. And I think this is an absolutely great point, and also I don't think that this actually gives you a good, long-lasting and sustainable feeling of status, that as soon as you, go offline or you've done your dunk and got your likes, then it disappears again, which is why I do think it's important people have real physical, real-world relationships, at least as long as we're stuck in these monkey bodies, because those seem to be much more durable in the feelings they give you, so you don't have to keep chasing that dragon.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for in-person dialogues and relationships and everything. This was like a point made by the anti-mask people during the plague times, but like I do suspect there probably was some downside to having everyone's faces hidden for kids during development years. Mm-hmm. I'm not an expert on child development, super far from it. I don't know what age kids start to walk or talk, and I have 3 nibblings at this point, so.
Nibblings is what you call them?
It's a word cute. Katrina taught me.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's it from?
I don't know, but nieces and nephews. nibblings. It's way shorter, way fewer syllables, and I love it. So, and it sounds adorable.
Yeah. Sounds like they're nibbling on your future.
You're right.
Non-gendered. I don't know why you need to specify the gender. Well, anything really, but
I think because I don't know. I guess maybe having a nephew will be different than having nieces, but not so far because the kid is a month old and I haven't interacted with him yet. So,
is there a term like that for aunts and uncles?
I'd have to. Well, we can invent one.
Knuckles.
Knuckles.
That already has a Shakespearean connotation.
We'll have to brainstorm that another time.
Okay. Zorander also speaking about Dunbar spheres, that our technological progress requires more specialization and coordination among specialists than Dunbar's number of people can provide. Money takes over from social credit, which, along with speculation, can produce some truly big winners, which also enhances other important forms of well-being. Which, yeah, I think it's a good point that we're always going to have this conflict as long as we're in a big, complex society with many millions of people that have to coordinate, because you just can't have Dunbar sphere things in there. Going to have to somehow thread that needle, balance the two. I'm not sure what the term is.
I mean, you can have Dunbar spheres, just it's sort of unfortunate that we have to teach people, that super stimulus is a thing, and unfortunate that there's like incentives for creating Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and these like fake Dunbar spheres that are actually comparing you against an unrealistic, I don't know, again, like the thing with people's like perfect family photos, vacation photos, like them at the gym, curated lives.
Wasn't that also how the Japanese companies, car companies, Toyota, Honda, ended up taking over the American market? Because in the American market, the workers were just stamping out the same product. Like there was no sense of any, I'm helping people, I'm doing something in my Dunbar sphere. Whereas in the Japanese assembly lines, everybody had veto power. I could stop the line. Everyone had some sense of responsibility, so people could get to know that what your contribution was.
I didn't know that was responsible for like elevating that company, but I could completely understand. I have a new job that I started 3 weeks ago. Feels longer, but I saw one of the best examples of like companies doing things correctly. We had an issue with it's a drug company that makes drugs for hospitals, mostly scheduled, and the people that were making the drugs were regularly forgetting to put little petri dishes to test the air quality regularly, like I think at 30-minute intervals. And the manager sort of got everybody together in a circle. I was like, all right, so we've been having these issues repeatedly. It doesn't name names. Like most people knew who was responsible for them. It's like, so what I want to ask everybody is, why are we having these issues? Because we as your bosses, that means we as your bosses aren't giving you the resources that you need to do your job right, and we want to brainstorm together and try to fix this. And it was just like,
yeah, it made you feel important and included and part of a team.
Yeah, and like I have so many counter examples of everybody playing the blame game and like who's to punish, like let's shame the person who did it. And I think it's super cool for the management to come in and be like, this, we're responsible for managing you, so this is our fault.
Nice.
That means we're not doing our job right. What can we do to support you more?
Yeah, that's some solid ownership. You don't typically hear management make any allowances for. It's always usually it's the children who are wrong, right?
It's just a bad kid. Yeah, no, that job's going to keep me for that and other reasons that they've, like,
fucking awesome.
I mean, obviously, like, it seems obvious, right? You get more loyalty out of your team and better products going out the door if you treat people like humans, but some companies haven't figured that out.
It's one of those things that you'd think, it comes with a no-brainer, but it is not an intuitive lesson somehow for many employers. I don't know how they get by.
I mean, it wouldn't be an intuitive lesson for me either, necessarily. I'd be like, I want somebody to make this car door. Just make the fucking car door for me, please. Why do I have to be your babysitter? But then it turns out that actually meaning is very important to people, and they want to be valued as humans. And and I guess that is sort of my job as a manager, which is why I think I'd make a shitty manager.
Well, I think just what I mean, I guess, by being obvious is you look around the market and see what other places are doing, and like, hey, why do they have employee retention and we don't? Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, it's because we suck. Like
that's rarely the conclusion they come to, but
right.
Also, the conclusion "we suck" is not very actionable. It's hard to say, we should stop sucking.
We suck in these specific ways, right?
Okay, yeah.
Let's take a 10-minute feeling bad about ourselves break.
Right. Zorander also says that this episode helped me understand the reactions people sometimes have to celebrities. My layman's understanding is that high social status apes generally stay that way by acting well towards those lower down the hierarchy, giving them benefits, food, etc. When that doesn't happen, there will sometimes be banding together to overthrow them. If people see a celebrity as a high-ranking member of their Dunbar sphere, and believe that person is selfish or acting in ways that don't benefit them, the vitriol that is expressed towards the celebrity makes a lot more sense to me. They're treating the celebrity as though there is a personal obligation towards them.
That does remind me of studies they've done on brand, what do you call it, like brand affiliation or brand loyalty, where, for example, if you love Apple, but you, like, I don't know, they come out with an ad that you think is really offensive, then it's like people will generally like always stick to whatever their loyalty to whatever their brand is, unless like something personally, unless they feel betrayed by that brand, and then they will completely flip and be like, I was tricked by Apple's garbage and replacing everything with Windows or whatever. And it's such a strange thing to understand.
What if they come up with a product that offends me, like a computer without USB ports?
Yeah,
or a phone
I feel like it has to be more of
jack.
a feeling of personal betrayal.
Yeah, that's fair. Or a phone without a home button. I'm very much like I come off like an old man yells at clouds where somebody who works with computer stuff. Like I hate like touchless, car interface stuff, or not touchless, but whatever, touch screen.
Yeah, where's their touchless car interface?
Something without a physical feedback. What do they call it? Not somatic.
Tactile.
Yeah,
I want to be able to reach over and turn and feel a click of the dial when I turn the the air up or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that's a very old person, I guess, thing to say. No, what's sexy to say is, no, I want to tell my car, press a button and say, make it 69 degrees. And then it makes it 69 degrees, right?
I mean, I agree with you, and I think like design blogs and design people would agree with you too. Design is really important, and a lot of times people just forget that. And things like having tactile feedback is a big deal.
Blows my mind.
Anyways, one final one that I will bring up is Brooks. I just thought this was a great comment, not much to say about it. This is the explanation for why you let jocks into Harvard. Being the stupidest nerd at Harvard would cause you to have a mental breakdown. So they replaced that person with someone who can be proud of being good at sports.
That's awesome.
I cannot argue with that.
It's like kind of sad, but not wrong.
Yeah.
Or kind of sad, but also funny. Anyway,
Stephen, you had a counter thesis on anti-deathism that brought up a few points that you thought we should address.
Yeah. This was from Boyan, but I remember they wrote in with like what was your best purchase, and you guys did that episode a month or so ago when I was out. My quick answer to that is a nice mattress. I know it's probably a cliched answer, but it was actually really worth it.
Cool.
I think I mentioned that, it used to be, I'd wake up and my first sensation of existence of the day would be like back pain. And that's actually a really shitty way to start most every day.
Yeah.
And now that's not the problem.
Cool.
And it's like, that was worth an expensive purple mattress. So, I was going to say absurd, but actually it was worth the money. So,
you spend a lot of time asleep.
I do.
I feel like it's
yeah.
one of the more reasonable investments.
I'm not sure that was a attack on Stephen. I think
no, I meant you plural generally.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stephen.
No. The thing is, I am able to spend more time asleep now because I can sleep comfortably. Cool. And the sleep I get is better quality, and it turns out that makes your life better. So anyway, good mattress.
Stephen also misinterpreted that, but it was just like, yeah, I do. Guilty.
He didn't say too much, just a lot. So. So it was a rather long email. I don't know how to succinctly summarize it.
Boyan was just saying that in the episodes where we've talked about deathism, we kind of have been straw-manning the arguments on the other side. For example, if you could push a button right now that would make everyone live forever, it could have disastrous consequences for the environment with overpopulation. Potentially, what if, that button stops you from dying, but you continue to degrade physically.
Yeah, I feel like some of those are I think classic counter-arguments, and there was a good episode of Twilight Zone, I think in the 90s, and Death was played by George Costanza, and he was just like, fuck it, I'm done. And people are like, there's a building that explodes, and everyone just comes out screaming in pieces, and they're not dying because he's done doing his job. That's not the, if it's obviously terrible, that's not the future I envision for being, the goal.
I think Boyan does, use the not strawman version of this, where he says that people would still be healthy and be able to have full enjoyable lives.
Right. Yeah. No, I was responding just to the general because I've heard that before. Okay. Oh, not dying would suck if you know. It's like no, I don't want to spend my last 80,000 years in increasing stages of decrepitude. Right. Yeah.
Turning into a grasshopper.
Yeah. I want to spend the next centuries or millennia in a healthy meat suit if I have to have a meat suit or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
I'd at least be willing to spend a little while, like a brain in a jar, to wait and see if they come up with robot bodies or not.
But yeah, Boyan says, at the current point in time, we have to live with massive constraints on all sorts of resources, from space to clean water to other material resources. If the button would also magically create enough space and resources so that the current population could be supported, then people would still want to have babies. So now we need a magic button to not only create more resources in space, but also more resources and more space, and so on.
Really quick, I just love the, because you have to gloss over it for brevity, but the characterizing the downsides of aging as debuffs is perfect. I'm never going to not think of it that way.
Yeah. And I mean, yes, this is a problem that eventually we're going to run into anyway due to the heat death of the universe. No matter how much we expand and how many resources we can gather, at some point, reproduction, if we continue to grow, then we will run out of resources. But that's not really an argument against death necessarily, as it is an argument against expanding faster than you can support.
Can I introduce you to the movie Avengers: Infinity War? It addresses this question, this moral quandary.
Actually, yes, I want to bring up exactly that because
they're really good. Sorry, go on.
Okay, well, the other thing he says is the argument that societal change is supported by death was dismissed by Eneasz because it's not the optimal way to solve the problem. However, it's not clear to me whether we currently have a faster way that can enact social progress from within and not only from a top-down view. So basically saying that, yes, exactly, it's important for the old people to die off so that social change can happen. The thing is, with any argument saying that death is necessary because of resource constraints or because social change can't happen with otherwise, or scientific progress will slow to a crawl, do the old saying that science only changes when the old scientists die off. I forget exactly what the quote is. Like, none of this is a good argument against solving aging and mortality, because if you really need death to be the answer, we still have death. You can still kill people if there's not enough resources for everyone. If you need to kill people to make social change, you can still kill people for that. Like, his argument is just that I don't personally want to be responsible for killing people, so I'm going to let nature do it instead for some reason. I think it's a dumb argument. If you need to kill people, you can kill people. And if you want to make the argument, look, it's only fair that everybody gets an equal shot at life, so after 1,000 years on your 1,000th birthday, then we kill you, you know? That's fine. Make that argument. There's a famous movie about exactly this premise, you know?
Say it can just be random, dispassionate, fair, you know?
Right, yeah. Do the Thanos thing.
Yeah.
But if death is the solution to problems, there's more ways of implementing death than just waiting for people to die of old age.
Or accidents.
Or
illnesses. Like,
yeah. No, it's fair that I think, because I do sort of view the, the deathist stance, if we want to, even characterizing it that way is derisive, and I understand that, but I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. And so I probably don't give it its steel man shake every time it comes up. So no, I appreciate the thought here, and it's definitely.
I mean, if the problem is social change won't happen fast enough, if old people don't die, we can make a law that old people get killed, or people who don't change socially get killed. I wouldn't vote for these laws, but
we haven't observed
it's a solution.
That, though, Like, it could be, once people start living to be 200, we notice like that society stagnates or something. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we can think of ways to solve this, and it might just be like you're not allowed to be a politician after you are 110, mm-hmm. Like, or just term limits, whenever you want to be a politician, you can only be a politician for 20 years.
They actually had that in Three Worlds Collide.
There you go.
People who were old enough could no longer have any input on how society evolved.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, they could advise.
Yes. Yeah. The confessor was allowed to advise, but was not allowed to actually make laws.
Yeah. But anyway, it's good stuff. And Bowen, we appreciate Boyen. Let me know if I'm saying it wrong. I appreciate you writing in, and this is it's thought-provoking stuff.
I did want to also jump in with, I recently heard someone calling other people sufferists, And so for the first time in my life, I was actually sympathetic to Brian's stance that, like, there's no such thing as deathism. What the fuck are you talking about? Because I was like, there's no such thing as sufferism, where people just value suffering for its own sake. But then, I saw the arguments that were being made by, I think it was Imperishable Neat. And I was like, I guess that doesn't sound too far away from actually what some people say. And I could see how it is very parallel to deathism. So I feel a little bit closer to passing an intellectual Turing test for people who don't believe deathism exists.
Paul Bloom wrote a book recently, and I'm blanking on the title. It has something to do with the value of suffering. Mm-hmm. And, of course, people read the headline and not even like the subtitle. And so they get, he gets op-eds and newspapers written about, like, you're an idiot, and here's, suffering sucks, I'm in chronic pain, my son died. It's like, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, why do people do strenuous exercise? Why would you try to run for 20 miles without stopping? Yeah. Like, people value that sort of stuff, right?
I value not wireheading. If that makes me a sufferist, then I'm, call it a silly word if you want, but that's still my position.
Suffragist and suffragist.
Yeah, they're a little too close. Pro-sufferers, I don't know.
Are we done with listener feedback?
I think so. I appreciate it. This is good.
Okay, on to our main topic, getting lucky. And actually, before we get to luck itself, we're going to search for some outliers, because I think that's what luck is mostly about. We are starting with a post called Searching for Outliers on Less Wrong. He starts out with a anecdote about his own personal life, or she possibly. I don't even know who wrote this.
Oh, Ben Kuhn.
Ben Kuhn. Okay, yeah. So he wrote 150 blog posts, and the results distribution from those were extremely skewed. 2 made it big on Hacker News front page. After seeing the second post on Hacker News, Dan subscribed and started submitting a lot of his posts. This caused additional traction, which resulted in a first wave of subscribers, and Dan and him eventually became good friends. The other 95% of posts were completely forgettable. And this is a heavy tail distribution. A heavy tail distribution is one where the top few percent of outcomes are a large multiple of the typical or medium outcome. A light tail distribution, on the other hand, are ones where outliers don't matter much. The 1% of tallest people is still close enough to the average person that you can safely ignore them most of the time. By contrast, with a heavy tail distribution, outliers matter a lot. Even though 90% of people live on less than $15,000 a year, there are large groups of people making 1,000 times more than that. And the most important part being, a lot of important things in life are outlier driven, like jobs, employees, or relationships.
And of course, the most important thing of all, blog posts.
I did not include that, but yes.
So, yeah, I mean, and just kind of priming for the luck stuff, how do you make an outlier? Because you can't just
predict one.
Right. Maybe there's ways to help kind of increase your odds, but there seems to be a heavy luck factor.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's keep going here.
All right. Heavy tail distributions are unintuitive. People often make serious mistakes when trying to sample for them because, 1, they don't draw enough samples. 2, they underestimate how good of an outcome it's possible to get. And 3, they find it hard to tell whether they're following a strategy that will eventually work or not, so they get incredibly demoralized. By the way, writing is like this.
Yeah.
Most everything you ever write, and I mean, he specifically writes blog posts, but fiction writing is the same thing. Most everything you ever write will sink into obscurity, which I think is a large part of the reason why people like Stephen King do very well, because he just wrote a fuck ton. He still writes a fuck ton. It's amazing how much he puts out, and some of it is kind of crap. He's a very talented author, and I think part of that is because of how much he wrote and how much he practiced, but you just keep putting things out there, and some of them are going to be amazing.
I was going to draw that parallel with when I was in the mobile games industry, and how frustrating it was for my team was the production team, so like the artists, the programmers, the modelers, whatever, and like we were all trying to convince the management that you can't look at the top performing games and then try to copy what they're doing, right, or compare, like that, because a lot of the top performing games were random hits by people like in the Philippines or whatever that were cranking out a mobile game every week.
That totally makes sense.
And it's just a better strategy to just make a lot of things fast.
Stephen, you appear to be...
I was just thinking about, with video games, I was reading about, or rather watching a video about, there was a character in Overwatch that was used by less than half of players or something, was ranked lowly, like, amongst how many people used it, but amongst elite players, it was used like 75% of the time.
Oh,
I don't know anything about the game, so I don't know what character it was, but it was because the character was overpowered, but only if you were really good at the game. And so it's kind of interesting. I'm sure there's an analogy to be drawn from that somewhere in this, because it's not enough to have this thing in your arsenal. You need to be really talented to use it, and then you can excel, right?
Yeah, from like an instrumental perspective, it seems like who gave this? Oh, I think it was Derek Severs we talked about a while ago. Who talked about changing strategies, which was the sort of like say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And then after you've reached X point of success, like say hell yeah or no.
Yeah, I liked that. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you should. There's also something to be said for being aware that there are different sort of luck or outlier finding strategies that you can and should use it for different things at different times.
The thing that Ben says is the most important thing to remember when sampling from heavy-tailed distributions is that getting lots of samples improves outcomes a ton. In a light-tailed context, say picking fruit at the grocery store, it's fine to look at 2 or 3 apples and pick the best-looking one. It would be completely unreasonable to, for example, look through the entire bin of apples for the one apple that's just a bit better than anything you've seen so far. In heavy-tailed context, the reverse is true.
Because for the most part, especially like the stuff that's in the bin at the store has already been curtailed to where like there's probably not a ton of like really shitty ones, right?
Yeah.
So the difference between the best one and the worst one is going to be like the difference between like a 92% paper and a 98% paper, right? It's like they're all A's. It's fine, just have one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says that to have a working process for sampling from a heavy-tail distribution, you need to solve 2 problems. 1, a good way of evaluating whether a sample is an outlier. Boy, is that hard. And 2, a good way of drawing samples. Sampling from a heavy-tail distribution can be extremely demotivating because it requires doing the same thing and watching it fail over and over again. And here's an interesting point that I want to talk about just for a bit. Trust the process and not take individual failures or even large numbers of failures as strong evidence that your overall process is bad. And he says the other hard part of sampling from a heavy-tail distribution is that it's hard to know whether your process is working. And, yeah, like there's a lot of people who, again, I don't know, I hate to draw this example, but a lot of people who think they can sing or think they can write or something and then do it a lot, but it's always crap. And how do you tell them move on to something that you are better at? Or
I mean, there's even like
because they could be saying, no, I'm just drawing from a heavy tail distribution here. I need to keep doing the same thing over and over until I finally get one hit.
I mean, I think that there's
like, how do you know your process is any good?
Yeah, it's possible to slide into that too when you're doing something just totally nonsensical, like using fake medicine or something, right? And it's like, no, I need even more crystals, and then that'll work, right? I just don't have enough crystals yet. And it's, sure, 100% of the time it hasn't worked, but that's just, I need more data. Like, I know that that's not obviously what Ben's, gesturing towards, but this is the kind of like, whatever shit quote mining that a disingenuous person could use.
This has an obvious failure mode that I don't know if it's addressed.
To take a example that might be too close to home, but I just thought of now as we were recording this, what if, for example, you had produced 166 episodes of a podcast and were not yet as big as Joe Rogan? Like, do you think, oh, I'm doing it wrong, I should shake up what I'm doing? Or do you think I just need to keep doing it? And also, I know that's not the reason we do this podcast. We do it because it's a lot of fun, and we think we provide something of value to the people who do listen, and that makes us feel good. But like, if we were someone who was chasing fame through podcasting, at what point would we'd be like, we need to change what we're doing?
I'm glad you anticipated my first thing, which was the goal was never to do, to compete with Joe Rogan numbers, but
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what number I would draw, after 20 tries or something, start changing it up, but like,
I don't think 20 tries is enough.
That's the thing is, yeah, I'm not sure what magic number I would have, but at some point, well before 5 years in, I'd be, thinking, okay, it's time to change the recipe a bit, right? Do something different.
Like at the 20th episode of the HP Memoir podcast, I still had a couple dozen listeners, maybe. It wasn't many. I was just doing it because it was fun as hell, and I loved doing it. And eventually it exploded, and I was like, holy shit, this is cool. But I don't know. Maybe that's why you should only do things that you really enjoy doing. Like Joe Rogan just loves talking to people. He's innately curious and just wants to hear what other people think.
And his own voice.
Well.
Yeah, I think, one thing that you could do too is, you're not working in isolation. You talk with friends who are working on similar projects or have at least like related experience, and you can try and get some honest feedback. Hey, what would you do differently here? Do you have any thoughts on this? And then that way you're not trying to guess. And if you're trying to figure out, do I change the recipe at 10 or 20 or 30 episodes or something, you can at least get feedback from people and they can help inform,
Maybe that's why most bands break up after a year or two if they don't hit it big. They're like, oh, we tried making some songs. This isn't working out. I need to get back to my day job. And then maybe after a year, they form another band with some other friends, and eventually they turn 40 and they're like, I'm not too old for this shit.
That sounds plausible, especially if, the money thing's definitely a factor, right? Like, hey, I had enough money to float this, for a while, but I need paychecks again, so later. Yeah.
This reminds me of the whole, like, explore, exploit problem trade-off.
It's just really hard to know if your process is working, and I don't think he gives a good way to figure out if your process is working. He says something about first principles, but to me that sounds basically like intuition, and the people who end up having the best intuition on this are the ones that are going to do the best, but that's not entirely actionable. Maybe hang out with other people that have done well so that you can pick up from them good intuitions, but that's hard because people who are successful already have a lot of demands on their time and attention. You can't just go over and hang out with Joe Rogan,
Yeah, I won't fault him for not answering that question because I think that's not really the goal of the post, and also that's a really hard topic.
I don't think we've solved this yet.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a solved problem, right?
Well, the second part of the podcast will go into possible solutions.
It'll go towards ideas, right?
Yeah.
Things that you can do to increase the odds, but like,
yep,
yeah, this isn't. Maybe it is more like maybe. Well, certainly, I think success and stuff like this is more like poker and less like checkers. Like checkers is a solved game. Poker. I mean, it's all odds, right? And you can do what you can to increase your odds, but and how much do you bet? So I think that's a way of thinking about it.
Ben says a subtlety here is that the traits that make a candidate a potential outlier are often very different from the traits that would make them pretty good. So improving your filtering process to produce more pretty good candidates won't necessarily increase the rate of finding outliers and might even decrease it. Because of this, it's important to filter for maybe amazing, not probably good. Which is, he draws a direct parallel to venture capitalists funding projects, saying that searching for probably good is less successful than this could maybe be amazing, and just funding a lot of the maybe amazing things.
Yeah, most of my knowledge of venture capitalism comes from watching Shark Tank, and
they fund a new thing every week, right?
I don't think it's like a rule that they have to. But no, I don't think they do anyway, because they get 4 or 5 people pitching, and there's always 5-ish sharks, and they don't always all make a deal.
Okay.
A lot of people leave without getting one. So, but I think it is like, oh, you found a new thing to exploit here, right? Or you're doing a thing that everyone else is doing, but yours is better. It's just more like, really, I guess, I don't know. I think I'm. It's not exactly fictional evidence, but it's dramatized evidence.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm
I was thinking
well
probably
equipped
for
to
TV,
answer. Yeah.
They're more likely to choose things that are cool and new and wow
Sometimes.
than a better mousetrap or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best investments I think was the squatty potty was, like that stool that goes underneath your toilet. I think actually Lori invested in that and in Scrub Daddy. It's like a sponge that you can now find at like Safeway. It's awesome. It's got a little smiley face on it, and it's actually grippy, and like you can put spoons through the mouth part of it that like fits well. But it gets hard when it's put under cold water, so you just run it under the cold tap, and it's good at scrubbing again. And it gets soft when it's under hot water, and you can like get it into a glass and whatever.
Oh.
It's super handy. They're like $6, and that I think was the single most lucrative investment on the history of the show.
Wow.
Was like a sponge,
Yeah.
right? So it
There's
doesn't
an
have to be
outlier.
it doesn't have to be the coolest, hottest thing. It can be just like the better mousetrap, like you said. So yeah, that's interesting though.
Yeah. Well, I mainly brought this up as a precursor to this post on luck, which I find incredibly fascinating because I agreed that luck is, I mean, it's somewhat random, but I've always found that some people just tend to get a lot more lucky than others. And how is that? And I think that it's a thing you can cultivate.
Or anti-cultivate, like. You often see the example of the self-fulfilling prophecy, like the person that's just like, well, nobody likes me anyway, so I'm not even going to bother going out to make friends.
Yeah.
Anti-cultivate's a good word for it, and it actually fits perfectly with his first example. Because I was in that picture, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I get what he's talking about, and this is talking to me.
Well, this comes from a Twitter thread from George Mack, and is it George Mack? Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And it's a number of quick pieces of advice about how to increase your personal luck and just have more of it in life. And since everyone would rather be lucky than good any day of the week, this is, I'm hoping, very cool advice. It's basically a way of increasing your ability to get outliers in heavy tail distributions.
How to get lucky without being rich.
Yes.
And, I guess at the top, just as like a quick caveat, I don't know how much of this is like, a lot of it is super intuitive and awesome and I like it. Mm-hmm. But, some of it feels like it might be like edging into like the,
a little bit of like the secret.
Well, not quite that. I wasn't going to lean that I wasn't going to be that hard on it. I was going to say like the like how to make friends and influence people, or like the 4-hour work week, right? Mm. Which are kind of like watered down versions of The Secret. But there's no magic involved. So there's like no magic here, but I don't know how much of it is like, I don't know. I guess what you say it's advice, and it's definitely, I want to say it's good ideas.
Okay.
Right? That's what I wanted to that was my nitpick.
Is there a big difference between good ideas and advice?
I don't know, but for some reason I like good idea more than good suggestion maybe more than
maybe
advice.
Like
I thought advice is just suggestions.
These are fun things to read, and you might maybe want to try some of them, but not like you're doing it wrong if you're not doing it this way, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, your mileage may vary. These have not been, tested by large sample size, so use at your own discretion. Maybe that sort of disclaimer. Yeah. Whereas like advice might be like, oh, your door is squeaky, try WD-40, and like that will almost definitely solve your problem.
Oh,
right?
Okay, I see what you're saying. That advice is much more individual action to solve an individual problem, or
I don't know if I don't want to. I guess you're right, because that sounds like too nitpicky of a definition, and it might take us rabbit holing too long. But
I feel like we're metaing too much, and we should just start talking about the thing.
Right. Okay.
That's my fault.
Getting into the actual thing, the first thing he suggests is the luck razor. Should we just take turns going into these?
Yeah. Sure.
This one was one that I felt like I read the first one. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to have to read all these. Sent it to my wife. Sounds so grown up. Sent it to my wife, and I was like, oh, check these out. What are you thinking? So anyway, luck razor. If given 2 options, pick the one that has more luck potential. Example, cocktail party versus watching Netflix. Which one has the highest potential for future luck? Mm-hmm. Run equal A/B decisions through this razor. And it's like, okay, yeah, so most nights I sit at home watching TV, not networking, right? Mm-hmm. So my odds of meeting somebody that's going to change my life are 0 most days. Right?
Yes. I particularly was reminded in this point. Did you read Scott Alexander's? Was it a post or just a thing? I don't know about micromarriages.
Yeah.
He drew an analogy to micromorts, which for people, did this actually enter the rationalist lexicon around the time of COVID? No, it was before COVID.
Yeah, it was way before COVID.
Yeah, no.
But it definitely went up during COVID.
That's true. Yeah. The micromort concept being something that, like, if you know that something gives you a 1 in a million chance of dying because of that is the way it's always worked out in the past, you can count that as 1 micromort. And you want to keep your micromorts low because having lots of micromorts mean you have an increased chance of dying, and people don't want to die generally. And he extended that to, you can think of various other things that have low chances of happening, but that add up if you do them a lot in this way. And his particular example was the micromarriages. He said he spent many, many years doing lots of things that had some potential of leading to a marriage, but never actually, did until this one time. I think his example was he went to a well, I don't want to give too detailed examples here, but it was a unusual party situation that he probably wouldn't have normally gone to, and that's where he met the person who later became his wife. And he was like, I just racked up, because your chance of finding your future wife in any individual party are very low, but I just racked up enough micromarriages that one of them, it finally added up into an actual marriage.
They're higher than they are sitting home watching Netflix.
Exactly. Yeah. So all those that idea of micromarriages or other things that increase just the chances of something randomly good happening to you are good. Do those things.
Yes.
I do also want to point out that this is one of those things that's easier when you're in good health and younger and all those other things, because the more broken down you are, the harder it is to leave your house and do something rather than lay around and watch Netflix. And in a way, it's kind of like self-fulfilling and builds on itself, because the more you go out, the more you will have stamina and build up energy for going out and ability for going out. But also, you know, when you're in poor health, you just literally can't, and going out more isn't going to give you more of that.
Well, you don't have to be out necessarily. You just have to be doing something social, right? So if going downtown isn't in the cards, but going into a Discord server is, you know, whatever, Twitch stream, I don't know, some social event, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that sort of stuff.
This seems like another one that would benefit from a strategy change too, because you were saying like, yeah, it's easier to do this when you're younger and have more energy. It also makes more sense because unless you're like in your 40s and you want to have friends and a partner, but you're single, like by that point, you know, like, or rather, yeah, it doesn't matter what age you are. Like, if you haven't reached your goals, do more of the thing. If you do in fact have a like active social life and a partner and a dog, like, then you can just sort of fuck yeah or no this.
Yeah. But doing more sampling can be great.
I'll read this next one.
Actually, just before we go on, I sometimes wonder why humans are attracted to what they're attracted to. Because, I don't know, I'm a weird person that thinks about things like that. But health seems to be one of the most attractive things in general. And I guess at least part of that is because you have more energy for doing things that might end up getting lucky and being very successful when you're healthy.
I don't want to put on the Evo Psych hat, but isn't that super, super obvious?
Yes, but not to me, because I'm stupid.
No, but it doesn't have to be obvious to you. It has to be obvious to your inner monkey.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of my inner monkey's thought processes are opaque to me.
Yeah.
But, like, the reason, like, why is this, you know, healthy-looking young person more attracted to me than this, like, really sick-looking old person?
Yeah.
And it's like, because that person would make a better mate for my offspring, right?
I just think it's incredibly unfair. Like, I hate that. Like, when you're young and you're attracted to young people, that's fine. But when you're older and you're still attracted to young people, you're like, this is stupid bullshit. First of all, young people are dumb. and second of all, why is this? Dumb monkey brain, get in line.
Because you weren't supposed to live this long.
God damn it.
It's only optimizing for that narrow period.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, no, it's not fair. Our brains kind of suck in some ways.
And I mean, I still like people my age, but I had relationships with people a decade older than me in the past, and now that would be less likely.
I'm realizing you're almost 10 years older than I am.
Yeah.
So, well, not realizing, just noting that in my brain. So, yeah.
I don't know, but yes, the next one. Jace, you wanted to read this one?
Sure. Get good at marketing. It's the ultimate meta skill. It crosses over to every area of life. And I thought this was funny. If you can create a persuasive ad or landing page, you can create a persuasive CV or job interview. Mm-hmm. That's funny for me because I feel like the latter things are easier than the first. But then there was just life hack. Most people are awful at marketing.
I think that last one is very important to point out. It might be much easier to get better than average than you think, because I know I'm absolutely fucking awful at marketing, and I also kind of hate marketing, which is why I've never tried to get better at it. But I guess if most people are awful, just a little bit of effort could produce some big dividends. I
like that line too, because it's basically like life hack. Most people suck at this. Is basically saying this is low hanging fruit. People, you know, just try and do a little better at this. I do think it's funny that if you can create a persuasive ad or landing page, you can create a persuasive CV or job interview. Who's made an ad or landing page? Almost nobody.
Anyone who has, well, not anymore. I was going to say anyone who has their own blog made a landing page, but now that they're Substack, you don't have to do that anymore.
Or WordPress would basically make it for you. You know, like you had to put the picture on there or whatever. But
with WordPress, you had to put in some effort. You had to find the picture, find the initial theme that you're using.
Yeah, valid.
I feel like that was just sort of specific to the person who wrote this, or maybe the group of people this person hangs out in.
Or MySpace, you know, that was your landing page.
Yeah.
What song you chose.
Right.
You know? Just as a you know, to name drop for this, does anyone else think David Youssef when they see this particular?
Yes,
I think this is. I feel like he's that maybe George knows David and he's thinking of him when he wrote this one. Like this is. I feel like his arena, right?
Yeah, Youssef is the guy that is like, hey guys, get better at marketing. It's not that hard and it's huge.
And he's like, he realized this like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh yeah, you guys are all finally catching up to the party. I'm glad I've got 10 years ahead of you guys.
I guess speaking of being bad at marketing, I have written a fiction book, Lovecraftian horror in 2nd century Rome. Maybe read that if you're interested in it. It's called What Lies Dreaming, and I'll post a link. Also, I have my own Substack where every few days I just post random things that I think are interesting that I've been thinking on. It's not too deep or anything. Every now and then I'll post a screed about something. But those are two things I do. So hey, that was my shot at marketing. I'm really proud of the book, and the Substack is fun. Unlike
your previous blog, the RSS actually works in Substack. So I get emails every time you post, which is actually helpful.
Awesome.
Because the alternative was just like remembering to go to your blog every 6 months because I am bad at, keeping track of what part of the year it is. Yeah. So
I was finally convinced by Kaplan. I think it was Brian Kaplan who wrote saying, most people who blog should go to Substack. It's just better in all these ways. Plus, there's networking effects where people on Substack can help other people on Substack. And seriously, unless you're Paul Graham, go on Substack. And I was like, well, fucking if Kaplan is saying it, I guess I really should.
It might be one of those things too, where like Substack started out as like the refuge for people who got who were deplatformed elsewhere, right? And so the more people that are there doing things that aren't like just people who got deplatformed, it's like it brings sanity to the place, and then it lowers the threshold for people who are like willing to look at the platform, right?
I guess, but I don't think it started out that way. Like anyone can go there, but like it started out with major names from big journalism big journalist places.
Huh. I guess I heard about it in the context
was like, hey, we'll give you a whole lot of money because it looks like you're leaving your place anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Tiabini, is that how you pronounce the name? Taibi left from Rolling Stone. Sullivan left from, The Intercept? Or Atlantic? Something? Like a bunch of big name people just went over to Substack.
That's cool. Okay, yeah, my background on it was wrong.
No, it was both. I mean, like...
Yeah.
Little column A, little column B. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool.
All right, well, I guess I'll get this next one. Reverse prison advice.
Wait, did Steven get one?
Yeah, I did the first one.
Okay. Go on.
The cliche advice to a new prisoner is to punch the biggest person in the prison. Flip this on its head. Find the best person you know and help.
Punch him in the face now.
Share their projects, give feedback, make intros, etc. I love this advice. It is how I've done a number of things. Just volunteering in general is great times. I've volunteered at a number of conventions. It's always awesome. But yeah, I think this is great. It gets you involved in fun projects. I've also benefited from this a lot. A lot of people helped contribute to the HPMR podcast by giving their voices to it, which was a huge help to me, and did lead to some awesome knock-on effects. Jace, I know you because you were like, hey, you're cool. Let's talk. Also, I can do logo stuff. And I was like, neat. I'd also like to talk with you. You sound interesting. And hey, can you do a logo for us?
Yep, that was a while ago now.
I ingratiated myself into your circle by trying to do a voice for the podcast.
Oh, yeah. And doing a voice, not just trying.
Oh, yeah.
And doing 3 voices, in fact, although one of them was later replaced.
That's right. But yeah, it's also fun and rewarding in and of itself,
Yeah.
So
that's the big part.
That's the sign of, good social advice is like, even if it doesn't like win at the goal, it was fun to, half the reward was just doing it.
Exactly.
The luck raiser of cocktail party versus Netflix. Like if you hate going out to parties, this one isn't for you, and that's fine, right? Mm-hmm. But if you like socializing and you just like a nudge to do it, if that nudge can be, this could actually make my life better, right? Then that might help you to do the thing you actually want to do rather than do the easy thing, which is go home and watch American Dad reruns on Hulu, right?
I think this one is really, really good advice for introverts because the vast majority of the people that I see volunteering at geek cons and other things are people who are like just they're nerds. They're introverted. They're not that great at socializing. But when you have a task to do and a team to do it with, then you have an excuse to talk with someone. You have to be around them because you're working on this thing. You build relationships. You feel like you're valued in a place instead of feeling like you're the person nobody wants there because you're awkward, And it just helps a lot.
A thing I used to do, or I guess still do, is like, as an introvert going to parties, I would like ahead of time ask the host if they need help like preparing things or like, just go, I don't know, like, hey, does like anyone want to do a pizza run or something? Like, just like continually find projects to do to like help the party. Because it gives me like a non-awkward task to be doing, and it lots of benefits.
Channel your inner Hufflepuff.
That's a really smart move. I need to think about that.
I like calling it Hufflepuffing.
Doing work that is helpful to people.
This one might be Ravenclawing. Smart friends raiser. If you're unsure about a small bet, but your smart friends are sure, take the bet. If you wait for the rest of society to confirm it, you'll be too late.
Sigh, Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Bitcoin is probably the chief example there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum, maybe Litecoin, but the early cryptos, the early big ones, but the ones that got big, right?
Yeah. I put 1,000 into Prospera. Is that what it's called? The charter city.
I only did Doge as my alternative coin. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And right now that's looking kind of shaky because a socialist government just took over the country, and they're like, we're going to get rid of all these charter cities, not doing it anymore. But Prospera looks like they might still have some strong legal footing. I don't know. We'll see.
Is this that bank?
No. It's that charter city in, God, was it Honduras?
I think so.
It was one of the Central American countries.
Interesting.
I don't remember which one now, which makes me really embarrassed because I, invested in it. But yeah,
you were informed when you made the investment. You don't need to keep informed,
Yeah, okay, that's true. And it may go to nothing because of the damn commies.
It is in Honduras.
It is in Honduras. Okay, cool. But if nothing else, I feel good about doing that because I took a risk that might pay off really big. Who knows?
How does that actually turn around to make money? I know this is sidetracking, but
because the valuation, I don't know. Ask the person who gave me the advice.
But it's a charter city,
which
I guess I don't quite know what that means. But people pay to live there. Is that how that works?
There is a lengthy Astral Codex 10 post about this, which I would probably just have to link you because it is long and I don't remember all the details.
That's totally fine. I'll Google it or check out the post. I'll find it.
The point is basically people are allowed to do things which often are regulated so much that it's too expensive to do them, and they need money to start up, so you can buy a small share in it.
I can dig it.
Yeah, if it gets big, then that small share becomes worth a whole lot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's investment stuff. I just wonder what this business model was.
Yeah.
But okay, so I had to Google this because the second part of this was 2 other Twitter handles told George Mack about the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and he ignored it, and apparently regrets that. So it's a limited NFT collection. So that's all I know.
Gosh, I hope they got out of that before everything crashed.
It's unclear. This thread here is from late May, early June, right? So
let's date our podcast. The price of Bitcoin is now just under 21,000.
Good God. Like, wasn't it just like 3-4 years ago? It was 65K.
Just 6 months ago, it was 60K.
That's Nutter Butters.
Yeah, that's a steep decline. Kind of. Oh no, not 60,000. It was almost 50,000. Sorry,
but still,
yeah. The silly thing is, last time I bought Bitcoin, it was at 6,000. So even after this huge crash, I'm up quite a bit.
Oh, good.
If I ever sell, yeah. I mean, I don't have a full Bitcoin because I couldn't afford a full one, but I have a small fraction of a Bitcoin that's still up a lot over what I bought it at.
That's solid.
Yeah.
I bought Dogecoin like the week before it exploded in January, whatever year that was.
Nice.
And I bought $50.
Okay.
And it was like $17.50 like 10 days later.
And how much was that worth?
I mean, it went from like 0.009 cents to 70 cents.
But when did you buy it?
At 0.009.
Oh my God.
Right. So I made like, I don't know, $1,700, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then while it was climbing, I kept buying more.
Oh
so
no.
I'm like, I'm going to get on this and, keep going all the way to the moon. So I sold off everything, and I'm even.
Okay.
I sold off all of my buy-in, and so now that it's tanked and worth shit again, I'm still up. Everything now is just profit.
Okay.
Right? So
okay.
for a while, it could have been a lot more profit.
Yeah.
But I've lost no money at this point, so that's good.
Dogecoin was always a meme. I'm shocked anyone bought it.
Me too, but not complaining.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the Smart Friends Razor, and that's good advice. Trust your smart friends. I need to get in on some of these things that people tell me about. So
hard part about that is having smart friends.
That's part of the networking. That's part of these other goals, right? So,
right. Yeah.
Or these other action items.
Yeah. This is one of those. Okay, so pursue high leverage relaxation. Rank all the relaxation activities on this. 1, how much it relaxes you, and 2, how quick it takes to do. Find the highest leverage one across both scores. Do it regularly. It is hard to notice lucky opportunities when cortisol is through the roof. And that
cortisol
one's calling me out, personally.
Cortisol is the stress hormone that makes you feel bad. So you want to get rid of that by relaxing.
Yeah.
How much it relaxes you and how quick it takes to do. All right, so I already know my number 1. And it's not sex, actually, because the way you
How
laugh.
quick is it?
Yeah, my first thought was, okay. So
No,
what's your?
It's cuddling.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, and that can be 30 seconds. You know?
I'd like to at least be a few minutes.
No, same here.
yeah,
But
yeah.
just a good 30-second close your eyes hug. That could be super relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Idiosh in a nutshell.
Aw. No,
Secretly
but
cuddling?
My favorite
Is it a
cuddling is
secret?
like lying down, having most of the clothes off, maximum skin-on-skin contact, and just being like close. That's awesome. I don't actually think sex is all that relaxing because it is,
It's strenuous.
it's strenuous.
It's like-
It takes time. It's a little bit stressful. It's not something you want to skimp on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the payoff is huge, so I ain't complaining about it. But yeah, it's not.
Yeah, especially the end part. It's great.
Right. but it's not like cuddling in terms of just sheer relaxation and getting rid of that cortisol.
For me, this would be like looking at lizards. Like, I went to the pet store yesterday to just get some feeders for my lizards, and I just got off work, and I have had worked Monday through Saturday, like long shifts, and I was like, just suddenly, I grabbed some random guy and I dragged him over. I was like, "Look over here, they have baby axolotls," and he was just like, "Oh my god, they're so cool." I was just talking to random strangers, like.
When my wife was a wee baby and she would have difficulty, relaxing, her mom would take her for drives, and I'm trying to remember. I don't know. I guess they must have been near, not an aquarium because that's like a place where you pay to go look at fish. A place that sells fish. So you don't have to pay to enter. You just walk around and look at the fish tanks, right?
Free pet store.
Yeah.
No, sorry, free zoo.
Yeah, exactly. A free zoo where you can look at fish. But she would carry her mom would carry her through this, and just that would be relaxing, and she'd fall asleep. And now she finds fish tanks and that sort of stuff super relaxing.
Cool.
It was ingrained into her from babyhood. So.
Do you know what your number one is?
No, I need to think about this.
Yeah.
I'll try and put it on the back burner and multi-thread through the rest of this conversation, see if I can come up with one. But I think actually taking 10 minutes doing this by pencil and paper would actually be worth my time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll think about it.
I want to make a matrix of them and then just pin them to the wall and put like a big blinking light on it. I'm really bad at self-care.
Taking a walk is probably really high up there for most people. If not at the top, then close to it. It's amazing how well it actually works.
A good decompression activity for me during a workday is doing the dishes.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite chore.
Okay.
It's rewarding. You get the thing done. Everything's out of the way. It's clean. It's not like if you're vacuuming regularly, you don't notice when you vacuum the things shouldn't look that much different. And so that's not very rewarding.
But it leaves the lines.
It does leave the
lines are
lines like a
super
freshly mowed
rewarding.
lawn. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the line.
I'm glad
That's why
that
I
we're
could never
all
get
like
one of those
this.
fucking stupid Roombas that bounces all around.
Oh, I kind of like the chaotic Roomba lines, actually.
Have you seen a lawn that's mowed that way? It just makes you want to pull your hair out. Somebody who just goes all over the place.
I'm so scared of the idea of a Roomba lawnmower. It seems like just a horrifying accident waiting to happen.
Oh, it's a guarantee. Some kid's just gonna get thrown into that thing like a wood chipper. So, all right. Well,
no, I read that one, I think, didn't I? No. That was
Yeah.
okay. So I am reading the next one. Sorry. Avoid boring people. Avoid people that bore you. Avoid being the boring person in the room.
avoid yourself.
Be interesting and seek interesting friends. People will remember you when they have an interesting opportunity. I don't know what to say about this aside from that's awesome. I guess the harder part is avoiding the people that bore you because it can be rude sometimes. One of the nice things I guess about parties is that there's snacks and drinks around.
Yeah.
And whenever you're starting to feel bored, you're like, I'm going to go refill my drink or I'm going to go get a snack, and then just don't come back.
Well, and then there's often limited seating, so it's like, oh look, spot to sit opened up, or I'm tired of sitting. It's just you like to move around. I think that's acceptable at parties.
Yeah.
And you do get to choose which people you allot your time to.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hard part is number 2, avoid being the boring person. I mean, I guess you could be the person wearing a wizard's hat and nothing else, and people talk about that, but maybe find more subtle ways to be unboring.
I think there's a number of ways to easily avoid that just with a little bit of prep time. I mean, just being a rationalist in a room full of muggles is enough that if you need to, you can just break out something like, I think death sucks. And all of a sudden you're not the boring person.
All of your idiotic intuitions about solving the homeless crisis or whatever, putting caps on rent controlled apartments or rent rates.
Right.
Those are all wrong. Fight me. That's a way to get people's attention.
You may not want to start right with that. Maybe you start with Thanos did nothing wrong. Because at least then it's fictional and people won't get all, upset.
That's fair.
You might look like an edgelord, though.
There's also, I don't know, like...
But you can just prepare knowing a few things that you've done in your life that are generally unusual and interesting and mention those.
Step 1, do those. Step 2, talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just, being yourself. There's a temptation to kind of not be the weird person in the room, especially if you're meeting new people. I had to push against that for a bit at work.
Yeah,
you guys have selves that you are?
Weird people are interesting, and if you're trying to conform and be like everyone else, that's boring. In my opinion, anyway.
No, I think that's the point. You don't want to fit the mold, right?
I think the easiest way to not be the boring person is to have something you're really excited about. Like, just when you think about it, you get enthusiastic. And, I mean, maybe it's something that other people find boring. I know I've talked with people who are very enthusiastic about things that I find boring, and I usually will move away if that happens. But, it's rare, because oftentimes enthusiasm is contagious.
I love hearing people's rants about their special interests. They get so cute when they're all excited about whatever ships or something.
The only two things that I find very boring that people are often excited about is their dreams, because that's like their actual literal dreams that they had last night, because everyone thinks someone else's dreams are boring. They just don't ever talk about
it's
dreams.
So hard to convey why it was a good dream,
Yeah. And drug use, because drug use is basically just dreams on order. And I'm like, yeah, I know you have a great time with these drugs. I do too, but
that's not a bad way to put it, actually. I knew people in high school who are really into weed, right? And it's like, this is a really boring interest. Remember, there's an episode in season 3 of What We Do in the Shadows. There's another energy vampire, and his thing was talking about weed to bore people. Yeah. Cool. So, I can dig that. And as far as people's enthusiasm, here's a piece of these are interesting suggestions or whatever. If I'm gonna nail down what I think is good advice, never shit on somebody when they're expressing enthusiasm for something, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's something stupid and dangerous, or whatever. That's different.
I love driving around 90 miles per hour, no seatbelt.
Yeah,
then maybe
if they're doing something, but
express disapproval
with the obvious caveats. If someone just is really into something that you find super boring, don't give them a bad time for it.
Yeah,
let them love their stuff.
If someone really loves 50 Shades of Grey or whatever, don't shit on it.
Good example. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea, but I'm glad you like it, man. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, so this one is perfect because it applies to me. 0. DMs are the hack of the century. Most DMs, 0 value, asking for help, looks like a scam or time sink. Lucky DMs, provide value, give help, look legit.
DMs in this context is direct messages, because he's posting on Twitter, but basically it means any individual reach out, like a direct email or something along those lines.
And so it applies to me 0 because I'm not, because you're right, I didn't think about email, and that is actually a smart way to do stuff, right?
This is something I keep wanting to, I keep wanting to do and then forgetting, but I know that, I have, questions that I want to ask book authors. Or, I keep, sort of remembering the advice that, it costs almost nothing to just, ask the author of this book something, and then, it might end up being this really awesome conversation.
Yeah.
And if they don't answer, who fucking cares?
That's the thing is, I think you put it really well when you got Dan Carlin to do the voice of Enosh Brodsky in Rationality. Was, because I asked, dude, you got Dan Carlin? And you were like, yeah. All the worst that could happen is he would have said nothing, right?
Yeah.
Or said no.
Yeah.
And it's a quick thing. You also don't want to compose an essay for them to read anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take you that much time to give them a succinct couple of sentences.
Yeah.
And then they don't have to spend a long time reading it, and they can just thumbs up or thumbs down,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got Zoe Chase the same way. She's not nearly as big of a name, obviously, but I was a big fan. I reached out to a number of people, and most of them just said, no, but thank you. Several just didn't reply at all, and at the time I was like, oh, what, you're too good to even reply no to me? But that's because I was a douchebag that was full of myself after Dan Carlin said yes.
Julia Galef has ignored all the opportunity, I think 3 times I've emailed or messaged her various platforms to try and get her on the show. So.
Yeah, and then after that, I felt really bad. A year later, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I got so up in my ass that I was upset a famous person didn't reply to me. Yeah, just reach out. If they reply, they reply. If not, these people are very fucking busy and have a lot of people reaching out to them.
Yeah. And
even just replying, sorry, no, can't, is often more than they can handle. If 1,000 people do that.
It also opens up a communication channel, right, if you reply.
Yeah.
And so it's maybe you don't want, them to say, that's no problem, maybe another time, and then you have to, weasel out of like doing it at all, right? Because you really just don't actually want to.
Is it just me, or has there lately been more scams about someone texting like, "Hey Anna, that's a great idea," or something, and then you reply back, "Wrong number, not Anna." They're like, "Oh, okay, sorry about that. Glad you were really nice." And you reply back, "Yeah, hey, no problem." And then they're like, "Oh, hey, as long as we're talking, something. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is a scam." I've had like 4 of those in the past few weeks.
I haven't had one of those yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't noticed an increase.
I've got a couple nice voicemails because I don't really answer I don't answer if I don't recognize the number if I'm busy, and like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I was off by 1 number," and that's like they leave a voicemail saying that. That sounds actually like a person though. I'm like, what am I going to call them back and say no problem? Like, so I think that if they're leaving a voicemail, it might be a person or a pre-recorded message because I don't actually listen to it. I read the transcript. So
I just get suspicious about someone who, when I engage, like keeps pulling far after the conversation should have been like, "Sorry, glad you're not mad. Gonna go try to reach out to the actual person now."
Toads. And I want to clarify because you're talking about, feeling like annoyed that people didn't reply or whatever, and I mentioned Julia Galef has ignored my 3 times to get her on. This is not...
You are directly calling out Julia Galef.
No, I'm saying the opposite, that I totally get it, and no pressure, not, like, no hard feelings. I'm just saying that, like, this is an example of, like, worst case scenario is you get ignored.
Yeah.
And it's like, all I did was waste a grand total of 5 minutes across 3 years,
Yeah,
so I had that time to spare. Like, okay.
I believe we are up to Jace again.
Yes.
Yeah, another good one for me. Avoid toxic people. It's hard to notice lucky opportunities when you're arguing or replaying arguments in your head. Toxic people are to luck what water is to fire. And can confirm. That's what I'm going to say about that.
I think this is particularly hard for people who have like high scrupulosity or conscientiousness. Just like toxic people will find someone who wants to help and do good things. This is almost like earlier it said, reach out and help people who are doing things. There are toxic people who will latch onto someone who is this kind of person reaching out, helping, doing things, and just suck absolutely everything they can out of them.
Yeah, that's why you need that the advanced Hufflepuff skill of recognizing those people and having really firmly established boundaries to keep them from manipulating you.
Because they'll take everything, and you won't have any extra time or energy to spend on going out to parties or sending direct messages to people or whatever else.
That's a good point. And yeah, you're right. That is the be careful mode of being super eager to help, right? Some people are all too eager to accept your help, right?
And not just that, like if sometimes they'll take your help, sometimes they just want your engagement, and so you get stuck in weeks of, back and forth drama, processing things. And I mean, yeah, sure, that's important, especially for people who you're in a dedicated relationship with that you think that's important. But if that's all it is all the time with someone, like, it's just taking up a lot of energy for nothing.
You've mentioned this, I think, on previous episodes. You've used the word scrupulosity in a context I'm not familiar with, but I have seen on your blog. But I don't know if I missed the memo if this usage is circulated the rationalist sphere or something.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Oh, well, I missed it. Do you have a quick, just because I like it and it's an interesting subject, and I might not be the only person who doesn't know what you're talking about. So.
Oh, yeah, sure. Scrupulosity. The feeling that it's almost like the downside of heroic responsibility, the feeling that you are responsible for people around you always feeling good, and that you feel a lot of guilt whenever anyone has bad feelings, and you want to avoid that from happening. So...
a synonym for scrupulosity is religious OCD.
Yeah.
It's actually a psychological disorder.
I hate to call it OCD because I don't have OCD. Screw off. But I guess technically that is the thing they call it. It's for what it's
having pathological guilt or like an obsessive need to.
Yeah. If there's someone hurting out there in the world, you want them to stop hurting, and you want to do something specifically, personally, to do it. It's the hurry up and become God motivation, because no one should ever suffer. And if someone is suffering and I could do something about it, why aren't I doing something about it? That's as bad as making them suffer myself,
For what it's worth, as far as like not wanting to like grab the label of OCD or whatever, I'm pretty sure that most every diagnosis like this exists on a spectrum of 0 to 100.
Yeah. And
it's only once you cross the threshold where it's like, okay, now it's like we're gonna just say you have the label, right? And that's when you need whatever interventions on it. But I feel like we're going to look back at like in 100 years and be like, why were we putting everybody in these boxes when everybody is in all these boxes, right? Why are we trying to shove boundaries on these things?
Yeah.
I think it's helpful in a context, but like you don't want to
Once it gets bad enough to be interfering with your life, I think, is when it gets to the level of diagnosis where it needs a name. Like, I think the Peter Singer example about the kid drowning in a pond. If you see a kid drowning in a pond, are you going to let it drown so you don't ruin your $2,000 shoes? No, obviously not. And then he takes that to say, well, you could save a life in Africa right now for $2,000. If you don't do that, it's the same as not jumping in a pond to save a kid because of your $2,000 shoes. And I think that is very compelling, and that results in being completely destitute and working all the time to ship off money to people overseas that you don't know, and it's not good. I have found it. And a lot of people don't fall into that mind frame, but
the reason that was kind of like the catalyst for the effective altruist movement, and not like the 50-year lifespan actual goal of it, is because that's not tenable.
Yeah.
And in the original essay, I think it's Famine, Affluence, and Morality, published in 1975, there was a line that the conclusion of this is that you should keep giving until you're sacrificing something of comparable moral worth to what you'd be providing
to a child's life.
That's the thing, right? So it's like, okay, well, that means like no new clothes, no coffee, so like, but that's the logical conclusion, not necessarily what one ought to do. It's just like, yeah, if you run with this all the way, that's where it ends up, but it doesn't mean you have to do that. I'm a big fan of, like,
I literally don't understand why it doesn't mean you have to do that, because I strongly feel you do. And maybe that's what the scrupulosity thing is about, because I don't understand why that's wrong.
I'm a big fan of, like, I mean, I think you could say it's less wrong, right? And that's, ding. But, like, I was first exposed to the idea on Slate Star Codex, but I'm sure it's been elsewhere, but like a moral gradient. If I eat half as much meat as I used to, I'm half as good as a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. And if I convince somebody else to do that, I've made a vegetarian, right? Mm-hmm. The two of us are one vegetarian, and that is one vegetarian's net positive impact on the world.
That's a really good way of looking at it.
And so if you're doing anything, you're doing more than nothing, and that's morally praiseworthy in and of itself. Maybe the key is to think about things instead of like, I'm bad for not doing. You can think of things I'm good for doing, right? And that is a shift, because no one wants to say I'm a good person, right? Yeah. But, you can just say, no, objectively, I'm better than most people because I'm doing something, right? And that might be, you do that without in a non-elitist way, and I think that's the path to victory.
But yeah, scrupulosity is a lot of crushing guilt. And we got way off topic, so we should get back onto topic.
Thanks for indulging me.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah. So avoid toxic people. Did we have more to say about avoiding toxic people?
Nope.
No. Good idea. Okay. Next one is poker mindset is greater than roulette mindset. Ridiculous but true statement. Playing a game of roulette thinking it's poker is better than playing a game of poker thinking it's roulette. Assume everything is a game of skill and there's always something you can control. I think this is just really good advice, because it's usually the case that there's something you can do in a situation to improve odds a little bit. And if you never think that's the case, you won't ever do anything, even the stuff that you might be able to do that's low-hanging fruit.
It's probably true more often than it's false. And so I think, because my first thought is like, dude, there are a lot of things that like you just can't control, right? Mm-hmm. But assume everything is a game of skill and that there's always something you can control. If you're doing that, then at least you're trying on things that you otherwise would have passed up. Like if I have stress about the current state of government or something, at a national level, there's literally fuck all I can do about it, right? Mm-hmm. Basically. Mm-hmm. So, that's an example of like, don't burn energy trying to do something about it. But there
are things you can do more on a local level.
Exactly. And at the bottom of it, if you want to just kind of Mott and Bailey this, but in a way that's technically still true, you can always control your reaction to things. Right. Like take a stoic stance on like, oh, what's the headlines over there? Ooh, still terrible? I'm going to make some waffles. Just like, just leave it over there and not let it be your problem, right? Yeah. But that's maybe...
I think there's a number of things people say, like, I can't control if I get hit by a car or something, right? And that...
That someone who says that, I get... Okay, yeah.
All right, let me...
crushed by a meteorite, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I can't control if I get hit by a meteorite. That's just a random thing that there's no way to control that. But on the other hand, you can improve your odds of surviving it. Like, getting more exercise increases your body's ability to... The VO2 level, I think it was called, just ability to absorb oxygen and use it, and people with a higher VO2 level are more likely to survive the same traumatic event as someone with a lower level. So even just basic fitness can help you control things in a little way that you wouldn't have thought could help you control things, right?
Fight a meteorite.
You can do the equivalent of looking both ways before you cross the street, if it's like the hit by a bus example, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, sure, you can't stop the bus, but you can prepare and be careful, right? And if the version of that is eating well and exercising, then it's like that's
you can always have 3 days of calories somewhere in your house in a closet or something.
Yeah, and there's always a like this is I like that because that puts things back in your control in a way that like yeah, you can't stop the thing, but you can put up guardrails in your life, right? Yeah, I like that. Let's see, the next one was obsess over environment. Move to the city with the highest chance of luck. Move to the city with the highest chance of luck for you. If you can't physically move, do it digitally. Find like-minded people on Discord and Twitter. Provide value. This one's hard.
Huh? I was like, check.
I mean, Jace absolutely did that.
Yeah, you're badass. Yeah. I'm not. I moved to Denver, but that was just because that's where my wife was able to land a job after college, and it was only an hour away. So. But I think the hard part is like provide value. It's like, okay, sure, don't suck, got it. Like,
well, I mean, provide value is just what he said before. Find someone doing something and offer to help.
You can always find something to do. Yeah. It's just this one might be,
if you're going to a party, you can bring some snacks or something. I don't know.
What's funny is he's actually making the point that I made earlier about if you can't go to a cocktail party, do it digitally, right? And here I am arguing against it because that sounds hard, but it's doable. Find an online community that doesn't suck and be involved there. Yeah.
Being in the place where something can happen is really huge, though. Like, if you want to be an actor, you have to go to Los Angeles or New York if you want, stage acting. There's just no other way around it, even though technically, there are some movies that are shot in Omaha or whatever.
Right. The talent scouts will just be coming through bumblefuck nowhere and be like, you look like the person we need for this movie. Do you have an afternoon off? And like, that will almost certainly not happen if you want to become an actor. Don't just wait for them to knock on your door, right? Yeah.
Luck is concentrated in various areas. Go to those areas. Also part of the reason you go to parties.
Yeah, I can dig it.
Here's one that I like and have done. Introduce people. If friend A and friend B can get value from each other, intro them. It's a 30-second email for you and might change their life forever.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Congratulations, you both just met a cool person.
Yeah.
And that, they hopefully will remember you as the person who introduced them, but even if they don't, you have been part of the luck-increasing network in the world, and being inside of that network is great.
I like this quote. Networks are the only thing that don't divide when you share them. They multiply. That's fun.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about that. Like, it's good advice. Yeah. I have done it. I recommend it.
Yeah. Seems like very basic advice, but I guess all of these would sound like very basic advice to some people and not to others. So
I can't think of a single time I introduced two people deliberately. Like if I've bumped into somebody while with somebody else, I'll try to remember to introduce them, right? But this will be an action item for me. I'll try and find an opportunity to do this.
Oh, okay.
If you know people with certain skills and someone else that might need that skill.
It's actually sort of a life hack too. I realize there's one specific time that I remember. I went to a party with the goal of I'm going to try to talk to people, get to know their basic deal, and then introduce them to other people. And
sounds like a fun way to pass time at a party too.
I mean, again,
stealth activity.
This was a launch of one of our mobile games, and it was like I knew my coworkers. I didn't know anybody else there, and it was this massive thing, and I was intimidated. So I was like, I gave myself the goal that would make me walk around and talk to people, but I was playing a game of let's see if I can match two people together on common interests, and it was and I realized it's a sort of life hack for introverted people that don't really know what to do with themselves as a party at a party too.
That's really cool. Well, you had a really good thing to add on this one.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Guess I did. All right.
Next one, delete the scoreboard. It is my turn, right? Because you did the last one. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't wait for others to do nice things for you before you do nice things for them. Just relentlessly give to good people with no scoreboard in your head keeping track. You'll end up lucky, fulfilled, and your funeral will be packed. I particularly like that last part. I basically agree completely. Having a scoreboard like that is it's kind of toxic. It's bad. Also, you don't need to have a literal scoreboard because your emotions will keep score for you.
Yeah.
You will just naturally start feeling better for people that have done nice things to you, and you'll want to help them more. And I think that's one of the better ways to do like roommate and co-living situations is just do things that will make other people like you more, and they will do the same for you, and vice versa. And if you aren't doing those things, the cohabiting situation might start to fall apart because that's an important thing to do.
Yeah, as someone who's like been in group house type situations, I feel like if you have to keep score, sometimes that means you're already failing at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially, generally people want there to be a scoreboard if they feel like they're the one that's being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Me being the person that was continually being, hey, can we, have split-wise? Or, like, can we keep track of his buying groceries? It's like, maybe the conversation I should have had was, hey, can we talk about how I'm always buying the groceries?
Yeah. Yep.
I think this is solid, just with the same kind of asterisk that was above about, if you're giving relentlessly, make sure you're doing that wisely, right? Don't let somebody who's taking relentlessly monopolize that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But if someone's taking relentlessly, I think you're going to start having bad feeling towards them, and then you're going to stop doing the nice thing, hopefully.
But he says, don't keep a scoreboard. That's the point, right?
Yeah, but that's not a scoreboard. That's your emotions. Emotions are like the built-in scoreboard.
That's a good point. Honestly, that should have been articulated. I guess the tweets only have so much length, which is part of the thing, but that should have been articulated. Like, let your feelings keep track rather than actually write down, I did the dishes on Monday, Tuesday, it's your turn on Wednesday. That is nonsense. That's going to make no one happy, right?
And it's also good to keep in mind that, like, you're not going to see everything that someone else does, and they're not going to see everything that you do. So it's important to keep wiggle room in there. And I think this is why he says just relentlessly give to good people with no scoreboard, because if you keep that scoreboard, you're going to notice all the things which they sometimes don't notice, and vice versa. So just the idea that you're always going to be sacrificing something and you're always going to be putting more in that you feel that you're getting is remember that and just be okay with it. Be doing this to people that you like enough that you are fine with giving them more than you're getting back, and actually it'll turn out good, usually. Again, this is assuming you know good people and not toxic people.
Yeah. This is good advice after you implement the no toxic people advice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is also how Hufflepuffs work. They just always do nice things for each other over and over, and it works very well. Strong building snowballing effects.
You just have to use your Slytherin for a minute to trim the people first, and then Hufflepuff it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you should always have a Slytherin somewhere in the group to find, the toxic people and cut them out.
That's one way you can provide value.
Exactly.
If your group doesn't have a Slytherin yet.
Yeah.
So this one I liked was get more curious with age.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity is like your joints. It weakens with age. You'll dismiss great opportunities as a fad. Assume your first thoughts about new trends are wrong. Age like Gary Vee or Mark Cuban. I don't know who Gary Vee is, but I know Mark Cuban is.
Who's Mark Cuban?
He's a billionaire investor. He's one of the Shark Tank guys.
Okay.
He was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He lent the Pineack Bandit his jet to take for his bachelor party. Pineack,
He's a rich dude.
On the show, the Pineack Bandit had gone to Shark Tank to pitch his blanket,
okay.
the Smush Shush.
Okay. Nice.
It's like this bone-crushing, heavy blanket that he put on Barbara that almost killed her. So,
Oh,
Oh
damn.
my god.
Anyway, put 20 hours, and I'm going to actually caveat that last line before we get there, because I want to praise it, then draw attention to this last line. So, assume your first thoughts about new trends are wrong. I really liked that a lot, and just because I do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I'm already an old curmudgeon. I've been doing this forever, and don't dismiss great opportunities as a fad. Try something. Especially if you're in the habit of saying no, try to say yes to stuff, especially if it's safe and otherwise responsible.
Yeah.
But yeah, just try the stuff, see how it goes, and if you don't like it, you don't like it.
I usually like to new trends. I was like, oh, sweet, this is the cool new thing. I'm going to talk all about it. Yeah, fucking lithium, And, they don't always work out, obviously, but it's a good way to, I don't know.
You don't have to love the new trend. You have to just not immediately shit on it. You're like, oh, maybe there's something there.
Yeah. I do think there's that good point where curiosity is like joints. It weakens with age because, first of all, fuck aging. But second of all,
fuck joints.
Yeah, I think it's true. Like, I just am less curious about things in general now, unless I push myself just a little bit more than I used to.
So keep pushing. That's the advice.
Because I used to fall down rabbit holes of curiosity often, and now I do it less often, though I still do it sometimes.
I do it more than I used to.
Yeah, it's probably good, right?
I need to find energy.
It's just always been one of my defining character traits. That's why I've had 8 different careers and
Which is awesome. I need to dig into more stuff and get more curious. But anyways, the last line of this one was put 20 hours into a new trend before you have an opinion.
Yeah.
And I guess because again it's Twitter, but he didn't articulate what he meant by trend. Because I feel like there's a lot of trends that suck, and that is a prejudgment that I didn't put in the hours before making the judgment. But what was it? I heard that Elon's deal to buy Twitter fell through, right? And
well,
somebody,
he's backing out of it. Now there's going to be some kind of big lawsuit or something. Yeah.
Apparently the terms were if he backed out, he owed them $1 billion.
Right. Which
is amazing. If you can't afford this, you owe us $1 billion. That's an amazing thing to put in your contract, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know what. I don't know. One take I heard on it was that oh yeah, I guess enough people got to him that he backed out. And I'm I really hope that's not it. There are a lot of good reasons to not do it, maybe. I don't know. I don't have $40 billion to piss on Twitter, but...
My guess is that he made this offer before the stock market plunged like a rock, and now he doesn't think it's worth $44 billion and doesn't want to spend that much. Which, I agree with him in every single way, but also... Once you make the offer, and now you're kind of contractually bound to it, even if things change and it ends up not being worth it.
I signed for a house in December that won't be done until October, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Luckily the price was fixed,
yeah.
And, maybe the housing market will crash before then, right? And the place will, the place next door will be selling for half of what I bought mine for. I'd be pretty fucking salty about that, but,
yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. But then I could buy a house.
Yeah, then things will work out for more people, and it'll be and then I could refinance and, whatever, right? But...
Yeah.
Anyway.
But the $1 billion pullout is not. I mean, it sounds like they're still going to take him to court to try to force the full purchase.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, if he has to well,
because it's no way it's worth $44 billion right now. So why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
It's holy shit, that's a lot of free money.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But anyway, someone is oh maybe essentially he got maybe he was successfully bullied into stopping, and I don't think that's what it was. It probably was the money, because I don't think he's capable of being bullied.
Right.
But anyway, I brought that up because that's a trend that I don't like, is bullying strangers on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very popular.
You don't want to try out that trend?
I don't want to try it.
Okay.
There's a chance I could like it. I don't think I'm the kind of person who could get into it. But if it's... a lot of people obviously get something that they might be in quotes there, but they get some sort of reward out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I guess define trend. Let just help me clean that up. Is it try new music genre? Because 20 hours is a long time to try new music that you might not like.
I don't think 20 hours is a long time for new music, because you can play in the background, right?
That's true.
I think 20 hours would be longer. We discussed this just before we started recording. Would be longer to try out a movie genre. I wouldn't have to watch 10 hours of torture porn or 10 torture porn movies before I can finally say, no, I put in my 20 hours. I really don't like this genre.
And by that time you basically cleaned out all the Saw movies and Hostel, right?
Yeah,
so yeah, I don't know if what's a good example then?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one example where it's no, try this for 20 hours and see if you like it. So here's the thing, maybe there's some in the comments.
There's a lot of things to try.
Yeah.
That's a specific amount of time.
It could be a more general idea, instead of...
give it a fair shake.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of, try this specific genre movie, it could be hey, give movies a try. If you don't like your first movie, maybe watch 2 or 3 other movies.
Be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good, succinct way to put this.
Yeah.
And that was well put by Walt Whitman, as articulated by Ted Lasso in Season 1.
Excellent.
Remember his darts game with evil...
Evil Giles?
Evil Giles, yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome.
All right, I can dig it. So that makes sense. I was just thinking that seemed like a long time commitment. And
maybe it's more of a guideline.
Anyway, I do like the one person in there said, assume that your first thoughts on new trends are wrong. Because I needed to hear that too, I don't want to be dismissive of things that before I try it,
Yeah.
For example, you had to sell me pretty hard. Well, we're already in the book, but, there was relationship dynamics in Worth the Candle. And I'm this is going to suck. I hate relationship drama in books. And now I'm super invested. So, try it before you knock it.
Yeah.
All right.
So that brings us to the end of Getting Lucky.
This was George Mack on Twitter. and we'll link to the Twitter thread. We'll link to, at the bottom, he links to, a link to sign up for his newsletter. Clouds and Dirt is the name of the newsletter.
Cool. This was good. I like this advice. I think it's overlooked by people. They're like, oh, you just got to get lucky. There's nothing you can do about that. You still do got to get lucky, but you can improve your odds.
Yeah.
You can draw more samples from the long-tail distribution.
I think we talked about this way back in the day, but I've had this tab open ever since on things you're allowed to do. Mm-hmm. And I think I can throw this to you. We'll put it in the show notes again. But it's just random shit. You know, if you want to learn stuff, hey, you're allowed to hire a researcher or, like, email an expert and just ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a short bullet point list of little things like, by the way, this is an option. You know, have you considered? And these are other ways to, like, increase your luck, right?
I don't think we ever...
I don't remember this.
No, talked about this, no.
All right, well, then I'll just send it to you guys now. But
we should, if you want, we could do an episode about this at some point.
I'd be down to do an episode about it.
All right, so eventually we'll follow up and talk about, maybe I don't know where I found this then.
Any final thoughts about getting lucky?
It seems like almost all of these kind of have a built-in, but like within reason caveat.
Yeah.
If you're going out to a bar like every night or like, you know, constantly just saturating yourself with social events, like you're probably defeating the purpose, and you can pull it back a bit.
The analogy of defective altruism and scrupulousness now actually is relevant again, because if you do that if you do the up to 11 for a month, you're just done, right? Mm-hmm. So you actually got to pace yourself and sustain this for decades.
Yeah, and it can be easy to get discouraged from doing it. I'm like getting slowly back into being able to do social things beyond just be on this podcast once every 2 weeks. Like, yeah. And it's like a muscle you do have to flex. I think I tried I have money now. I can jump right back into my old routines. And nope, gotta work back up to that.
Yeah, I think everyone's probably a bit rusty after, you know, the plague years, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember getting out to go somewhere after a few months, and I'm like, oh, I'm not as good at driving as I used to be. You know, it took just a few minutes to get back into but I was like,
I definitely remember my first social event after the lockdown period.
Which one was that? Was it a meetup or was it?
It was an outdoor meetup actually.
Yeah.
Because we were still like, let's not brush things. But yeah, it was an outdoor meetup, and it was like after a year and a few months. Yeah. I was like, wow, I haven't seen you people in a long time. I have forgotten how to talk. How about that local sports team?
Right. Having weather. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got a couple quick less wrong posts.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But they're really fast.
Okay, yes. I was
One's one line, and the amazing virgin pregnancy is imagine that this was, you know, Mary covering up infidelity, and it's just a short little kind of like, he writes it in the style of like play dialogue, but it's really funny, and it's like, oh, this won't be a big deal, blow over in a couple months.
It's a very fun fanfic.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
What's fun is I think the historicity of the word might be alma.
Which word?
I think in Greek, alma that's what like can be interpreted as like maiden, which can be young woman or like virgin.
Yeah. Virgin often meant just young woman, because basically once you reached reproductive age, you weren't going to be a virgin anymore anyway back then.
Right.
So, yeah, they used to use the word maiden as a synonym.
Yeah. So I think that but I think the Greek was even more ambiguous, and that's where that word was translated from. Right. And so what's funny is that like the virgin pregnancy thing is like, so this conversation might have happened and it might have gone down like this, right?
I mean, I don't think there was ever something like this that actually happened in history. Later interpolation. Once Jesus was known to be divine, that's when the virgin thing became a thing.
I have heard often that historically, you know, Mary's portrayed as like being in her 20s, and historically she probably would have been like 13.
Yeah. There's no way you're still a virgin in your 20s back in that time.
Well, Joseph was like older.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah, I just it was funny. So that's that one. The other one was Ash's conformity experiment, and most people are probably familiar with the you know, hey, here's 3 lines on a graph, and tell me which one's longest. So I'm going to go down the row, and you get 7 wrong answers, and then it's your turn, and you're like, the wrong answer they all gave, and that turns out people did that like what, a high percentage of the time.
So
37%.
It doesn't say how many times this was run, but 75% of the subjects in the experiments gave a conforming answer, so saying the wrong answer that everyone else said, at least once.
Right.
At least once makes me think this was a thing that was run multiple times with the same people.
Yeah. They did it multiple times with the same group of people going down, and then I think 5% of them said the wrong answer every time or something.
Okay. And it said a third of them conformed more than half the time.
Right.
But also saying that 3/4 of them gave a conforming answer at least once means that 25% of people never did. They're just like, I don't care what you 7 stupid fuckers have to say. That one is the longer one.
Yeah. The Wikipedia page on this is pretty comprehensive too. So.
How to find the disagreeable person.
But here's the question that we always have to ask about social experiment posts
Drum roll, please.
Yeah, in 2007, because this was pre-replication crisis. Does it replicate?
Yeah, that's why I went to Wikipedia rather than looked at this post.
Okay.
Because it doesn't say it replicates, but it does. Like, it doesn't come right out and say this survived the replication crisis. But this has been repeated a bunch, and it's structures for other interpretations of studies and stuff. So it seems sound.
The first thing I did was Google, did it replicate?
Smart.
And I have linked the first 5. Yes, the first 5 links I got from that. The first one was, yes, it did replicate, but it's a video, but it was also made for a news show on TV, so they may have massaged it, yeah. The second one was, yes, it does replicate, but it replicates less often for men. And this is actually something that was brought up later in the post, so I put all this before I kept reading the post. Third one was, no, it did not replicate. This one, only 1 out of 360 something times did someone conform. But this was also done entirely on STEM undergrads, which, as we will read later in the post, that was actually a predictor of being less likely to conform. Next one, did it replicate? Yes, if women, no, if men. Also mentioned later on, apparently men are more likely to be disagreeable. Finally, does it replicate? Yes, but more often if you're younger, more often if you're less socially prominent in the group, and more often if the people saying yes are your friends rather than strangers.
Which all stands to reason.
It does. I agree. Intuitively it does, but Eliezer, the rest of the post is him saying, why does this stand to reason? And I guess that's why we go on to the rest of the post. The main thing he says...
And if you have good friends, if you cultivate a good atmosphere,
yeah.
You will be the one who's fine saying, I disagree with all of you, and you won't be worried about them judging your harshly.
That was an earlier piece of advice. Just, if you don't know, go with what your friends are saying.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Just want to make sure, I'm shilling for the rationalist community.
Yes.
If I disagree with everybody at the meetup, they'll be like, oh, that's curious. Why?
Yeah.
Not, you fucking moron.
Yeah. At the last meetup, there was some discussion of a touchy political nature, and there was nobody being like, oh, you fucking idiot or anything. It was just like, that's interesting. Why do you think that? And there was a little bit of talk about that.
I missed the meetup. I had a rather severe headache. Wait, I don't know. I had a stomachache and a headache Thursday and Wednesday last week.
Oh, man. I was sick, too, last week. I feel like a lot of people were.
Womp.
But it was like a weird... Like, I tested for COVID. It wasn't that. Some friends did the same.
Oof.
Some coworkers were out. It was like just a weird week.
I'm glad it passed. Yeah.
But yeah, Eliezer points out the Almond Agreement Theorem that other people's beliefs are actually often legitimate evidence. What are the odds that in a group of 7-8 people, if they all agree on a different answer than what you came up with, you're the one who's right and they're not? It should be on normally some evidence that maybe you're looking at something wrong. Maybe something's happened that they are right and I'm wrong.
You misunderstood the question. They all understood it properly. Like
the
fact that everyone else is saying something is evidence that you're wrong.
Yes, yeah, exactly. If everybody else is jumping off the bridge, maybe they know a train is about to run over this bridge.
Yeah, it's the absurd extension of that though is like most of the world's religious, right?
Right.
So there is a limit to this, but it is evidence.
Yeah.
So anyway,
this is something we do at my job. Is everything? There's a lot of calculations, obviously, and then we have a system where everyone needs to verify everything at least once. But if there's like a conflict, then they just end up pulling more people. You're like, hey, we need more eyeballs on this.
Cool.
And it is sort of maybe it's kind of the theory of prediction markets, the wisdom of crowds and whatever. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, we are much more likely to find where the problem in the calculation is the more people like come and try to do it themselves.
Yeah. Even just simple computer problems. Half the time, you call someone over and they're like, "Oh, you just didn't click that button there." You're
Have
like,
you turned it on and turned it off again?
Yeah, right.
And half of the remaining half of the time, it's like by the time you're finished explaining the question that you have to them, you've already figured it out.
Yeah.
Which is why you should talk to your rubber duck first. Yeah.
So much of the rest of the post is Eliezer saying, but this can't be the case, because one of the things he points out is that conformity increases strongly with up to 3 Confederates, but doesn't increase further up to 10 to 15 Confederates. If people are conforming rationally, then the opinion of 15 should be substantially stronger evidence than the opinion of 3.
We're conforming rationally to our monkey brain, you know? Our monkey brain can't do math past 3 or 4, maybe, you know?
Maybe.
That's the Dunbar's number of Confederates.
He also says that adding a single dissenter, just one other person who gives the actual correct answer, or even a different incorrect answer that splits from the main group's incorrect answer, reduces conformity very sharply, down to just 5 to 10% of subjects, which shouldn't make that huge of a difference if, you're doing the whole sampling of people idea.
But having one person, say, well, hold up a minute. You're like, oh, good. I can also now, say I can comfortably voice my thought on it.
But again, it's a psychological thing rather than a Bayesian rationalist thing.
Yeah, no, it's all monkey brain. Yeah.
The funnest part was when he said that when they were interviewed, the people in the one dissenter condition did not think their nonconformity had been influenced or enabled by the dissenter. And yet, statistics show.
Yeah, so again, it's, if this was a group of whatever, like reflective rationalist thinking about this as an experiment kind of person, you'd be like, no, of course. Like if someone asked me at work, well, Stephen, why did you feel emboldened to disagree with the CTO here? I'd be like, well, because, he suggested this might be wrong first, and I just weighed in that I agreed with him, I was never going to jump in and say I disagree with him because I'm not informed enough. But if I was leaning that way and then this smart guy agrees with me, I'm like, oh, good. I agree with him,
This is probably why dictators and other evil people are so quick to crack down immediately on the very first dissenter. There has to be a strong precedence of nobody saying anything, so everybody thinks there's unanimity. As soon as one person dissents, then other people start thinking saying what they actually think.
Can't
That's
have that.
absolutely why, yeah.
Yeah.
Another interesting outgrowth of all this is that when the single dissenter suddenly switched back to conforming to the group, the subject's conformity rates went back up to just as high as in the no dissenter condition. So apparently being the first dissenter is valuable and costly social service, but you've got to keep it up.
Yeah.
Go
on.
Oh, I was going to say this kind of, I don't know. I think that there is a lot of people really complain about edgelords, contrarians, people who are, being contrary just to be contrary. And sure, they can be annoying sometimes, but also that trolling sometimes may have a valuable service in allowing other people to be emboldened to actually say things.
Yeah, it also kind of depends on if you're doing it in good faith, too. If you're just dissenting to be an edgelord, then you're probably not actually providing that valuable of a service. You're just wasting people's time. To that, I was going to say, with the example of the work meeting earlier, that it really pays if you're a business or probably even just a group of friends or a family to create an environment where people don't feel like they're going to be hammered down by the dictator when they come forth also. Because I, after seeing that, felt safe enough to go to my manager and complain about a thing at work, and I knew that I wasn't just going to be treated like the problem they were going to be, even though I was only there 3 weeks, oh, your opinion's valuable, we'll look into that. And sure enough, yeah. That's
awesome. I kind of want to make some kind of point about censorship regimes and social media, but then I'm like, fuck it.
Just insert Ineash says Ineash thing.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll save that for another time, though, because that's a conversation worth having.
Yeah.
Anyway, this last one was fun. When subjects can respond in a way that will not be seen by the group, conformity also drops, which argues against the Ahmed interpretation. I like the work example. That's when we have our weekly... Yeah, I think every week we do a half-hour meeting on the company. How's everything doing? There's 40 people who work there, so it's not, too much. While they're doing the kind of quick presentation of how things are going, there's a little applet inside Microsoft Teams, which we use because we're not cool. We should be using Slack. But you can ask questions anonymously. And every meeting, she's the head of HR. But her title in the email says I I think head of people relations or something, and I like that more because it sounds
People ear.
yeah. But anyway, so she reminds us every call like, hey, if you have any questions, you can ask them anonymously using this, and I think that's really cool because we get questions most every week. Cool. And like, what's this actually mean? Can you explain this? What so stuff like that where you don't want to be the person who raise your hand when the CEO's talking and be like, can you explain what you mean there? That makes no fucking sense. But you can quietly and politely ask that anonymously, which is fun.
Yeah.
So
that is really cool. Is there a way to second things? Because if just one person asks, maybe you're going to skip over it for time. But like if somebody else is seconding it, then you're like, okay, I really needed to be clearer on this one point.
You could totally write in and just say, yeah, what they said, and it just says anonymous, as the person who sent it again. So in theory, you could do that to yourself. You could boost your own message, right? So if no one's getting to it, yeah. But why not?
All right. Well, the reason that all this talk about Ash's conformity experiment is done is because he is setting up things for the next few posts. The next 2 posts we're going to be reading for next episode are On Expressing Your Concerns and Lonely Descent.
Fun on a bun.
Yeah. Should we thank the patron?
We should.
All right.
I feel like I haven't gone in a while. This week's special patron shout out goes to Alvaro Fernando. Fuck. I was on a roll, I felt like, for the first 2 parts of the name. IK Goekokia? Sorry, man.
You tried.
You rock, Alvaro, I can say. And we're on a first name basis. I'm Steven. Nice to meet you.
Excellent.
You're crushing it. We appreciate it. My inability to my lack of culture and inability to correctly pronounce things is a me problem, not a you problem.
But if Steven ever meets you at a party, he will gladly introduce you to other people using just your first name.
Yes, and you can please correct me when I get it wrong. So
This is Al.
yeah,
This is a good buddy, Al.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Alvaro. Your support means a lot. Keeps this thing going. We're still working on cool new mic setups and doing science with those, and it's great. So thanks. We appreciate it.
Yeah. We appreciate everybody's help. I'm out of brain juice.
Introduce us to your friends.
Yeah, exactly. And we will do the same to you.
It makes us feel lucky. Yeah, something that was bad.
Yeah,
I think
we're so lucky to have you all as listeners.
Aww. That's actually literally true.
We're all tired, I think, so good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Till next time.
All right, bye.